Hello, ground passers. Welcome back to Match Stories, where we talk about the matches with interesting storylines without getting into all of the technical jargon. How are we all doing? Today's match brings up a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I call it the Lost Boys. Who are the Lost Boys? Not the 80s cult classic movie. No, not talking about that. Talking about a group of three players born in the 90s: Daniil Medvedev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and Alexander Zverev. This group, once seen as the heirs to the big three, have largely fallen short of that promise. Overshadowed by Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, they never really hit the heights that we expected them to when they first burst on the scenes. And now, as time goes on, the window is closing on these three. But before we dive into that idea, let's take a step back and talk about the match in question. The match was the one between Alexander Zverev and Alexandre Muller at the Hamburg Open. Muller won this match in 3 sets: 6-3, 4-6, 7-6. It's the second top 10 win of his career and the first top 5. For some quick context, Muller started this season very well. He started with a title in Hong Kong just before the Australian Open, and then he headed into the Golden Swing and got to the finals of the Rio Open, beating the one Joao Fonseca along the way. Meanwhile, Zverev came into Hamburg after a disappointing loss at the Rome Open against Lorenzo Musetti, where he spent most of the match complaining about the balls and even took it to the press conference afterwards. He was the defending champion in Rome, and after that loss, it was expected, just like most other top players, that he would head over to Paris and start practicing for Roland Garros. But surprise, surprise, Zverev took a wild card into Hamburg. He said in press that his team had convinced him to take a wild card into the Hamburg tournament. I'm guessing the thinking of his team was, after such a disappointing loss at Rome Open, to get some confidence, win some matches in clay, possibly the tournament, and head into Roland Garros on a good foot. Let's get into the match. This was the second round match at the Hamburg Open, the winner of which was going to get into the quarterfinals. Coming into the match, Zverev, the hometown hero, the higher-ranked player and former champion, was definitely the favorite. Muller, who's currently around 40 in the world, really had nothing to lose coming into this match. But from the start, Zverev seemed off. Very flat, not aggressive, and Muller came out firing. Before you knew it, he had won the first set 6-3, and this match was on upset alert. In the second set, conditions got windier, and Zverev was still struggling. I often wonder how his diabetes affects his energy levels in moments like this, because the focus and intensity were just not there. That said, on the other side of the net, Muller's level also dipped. All it took was one sloppy service game, and Zverev was able to break and serve for the second set, which he took 6-4. Then came the third set, and that's where all the drama was. Early in the set, Alexandre Muller hit an underarm serve that clearly rattled Zverev. It kind of reminded me of last year when Arthur Fils did the same thing in the finals of Hamburg against Zverev, and Zverev was super upset about it and confronted Arthur Fils at the net. In this case, Zverev had a very similar reaction. He got angry, he locked in, and he played the best tennis he'd played all match. He even unleashed a shot that almost took off Muller's head. From there, the match was tense and chaotic in the best way, both fighting hard to get the match to a tiebreak, and Zverev led the tiebreak 5-3, but Muller was able to be aggressive and wrestle the match away from him, winning the tiebreak 7-5. So, what does this all mean? For Muller, it's all great things. It's his second top 10 win, his first top 5 win, and this sort of match builds confidence leading into the rest of the tournament and heading over to Roland Garros. For Zverev, on the other hand, this brings up a larger discussion. When Sinner was suspended, Zverev was seen as the most likely player to take over the number 1 spot in the rankings. To say he missed his opportunity to do this is an understatement. He had a string of early exits, and he admitted that his loss to Jannik Sinner in the finals of the Australian Open affected him mentally, and he probably should have taken a break instead of heading right back on the tour. Zverev's reputation is that of being a nearly man. Big game, great expectations, but never being able to close it out when it counts. Whether it's a Grand Slam final or the #1 ranking, he gets close but never closes it out. And the excuses, they pile up. It's the balls, it's the umpires, it's the conditions. This doesn't really help his case. Zverev headed over to Hamburg to gain confidence going into Roland Garros, where he's defending finalist points. After a loss like this, it's hard to argue that the trip helped. If anything, it's probably raised a lot more questions than it's answered. So, what does this have to do with the Lost Boys? Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Zverev are the 3 players that were supposed to take over once the Big 3 era ended. And yet, other than Medvedev's lone US Open title, they haven't done it. The door opened, but they didn't walk through. Meanwhile, Muller, on the other hand, who is lower ranked and less experienced, won this match because he took chances. Even in the tiebreak, Zverev had the lead, but as so many times before, he let it go. It's a bit of a metaphor. The Lost Boys. They had the talent, they had the lead, but they got stuck. They waited their turn. And the younger, risk-taking players passed them by. Can they still make a comeback? Maybe, but it might be already too late. So, what do you think Zverev's main issue is? Is it mental? Or does he just need to adjust his game to match up better against players like Fils, Sinner, and Alcaraz? And what about the Lost Boys? Do you still think they have a chance of winning a Grand Slam? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on another episode of Match Stories.